Through some suggestions of some friends, I wound up calling the Department of Homeless Services and said, you know, who's the hardest hit in New York by the recession? Who's the worst off? And the woman on the phone said, without hesitation, homeless transgender teenagers.
Life. I sat in a state of mind where I wanted to understand who I was. I needed a name. I needed to know who I was to these people. Yet who am I? Am I still that same little girl that wrote about the hamster that she loved oh so much? Or am I that preteen that wrote about why the world took her world away?
I wanted to get to something that was a little truer than this. Like, I didn't want it to be performancy. I wanted it to be a little realer. That's why we kind of made all these digital frames before we cut to film. And then so by the time we got to film, there was a little more honesty happening. You know, they were used to me.
That's it. All right, let me pop some light into that face. Hold still, hold completely still. Hold like still as you've ever seen. Cyanotype is a hand-painted emulsion on watercolor paper that is contact printed with a negative that's the exact same size as the ultimate image. The kind of handmade quality of the interaction of emulsion and watercolor paper and the kind of labor intensity of it did mirror in many ways the self-creation that these kids were experiencing. They were going through their own transformations of identity and how they presented that identity and their gender, and I was working with materials that were fluid and also in transition.
I always knew, I can say I've known since I was at least 8 years old at most, that I knew that I wasn't comfortable being who I was.
I always feminine as a boy, and just being a girl, I feel as if I can just start a new life over.
My childhood, it wasn't so peachy. I didn't even have a childhood. After my mom had my baby sister, Ashley, it felt like I was raising her. I had to be an adult.
This place has given me the opportunity, it's given me a new start. I think I can go on now when I thought that I lost all my hopes.
I've been transgender since I was 14 years old. And that was kind of hard for me because my mom's a Jehovah's Witness. Now she accepts me for who I am.
My birth name is Tiffany Coco. I go by Coco. My stage name is Life. It's not L-Y-F-E because I don't question life. It's L-I-F-E.
I have had the experience of really opening up my notion of what it means to be transgender. I think that a person is transgender as soon as they say they are. And that doesn't mean that they necessarily have to wear, if they're a boy, they have to wear girls' clothes, or if they're a girl, they have to wear boys' clothes. If a person identifies as transgender, as sort of either between a male and a female, or leaning in one way or the other, or somehow not fully identifying with the biology they present, then they are free to identify themselves as transgender, and it becomes our responsibility as a society to accept, acknowledge, and celebrate that.
A T-girl or a transgender or a tranny, that is the ugliest word I ever heard. It's someone who lives their life as a woman, you know, who plays the woman role.
When it comes to being a trans person, especially a trans woman of color, you have men who like to try us, you know, and disrespect our gender identity, and in my situation, that is what happened.
Well, my hope is that it will really elevate the discussion about trans kids in general, and also further and expand the notion of how we perceive gender and what it means to be a human being. And I think the greatest challenges that we face is that what trans people ask us to do is accept and celebrate and love a certain degree of ambiguity. We want to put things into categories, and trans kids are often not easily categorized, and by presenting them as who they are, it does subtly, I believe, ask the viewer to expand our notion of what that human expression is.
I one day hear someone say that my words are sick and that they've touched you in a way that only written words can explain. You're my inspiration, life. Standing on stage, reciting life in the frame of what people seem to call a game, when all it is a story that has a beginning and an ending that only you can determine.